Dissidents and members of socially marginalized groups have published their own opinions in leaflet and pamphlet form for as long as such technology has been available. Concept of zines had an ancestor in the amateur press movement of the late 19th and early 20th century. Which would in its turn cross-pollinate with the subculture of science fiction fandom in the 1930s. The popular graphic style associated with zines is influenced artistically and politically by the subcultures of Dada, Fluxus, Surrealism and Situationism. Many trace zines lineage from as far back as Thomas Paine's exceptionally popular 1775 pamphlet Common Sense. Benjamin Franklin's literary magazine for psychiatric patients at a Pennsylvania hospital and The Dial by Margaret Fuller and Ralph Waldo Emerson. Hugo Gernsback published the first science fiction magazine, Amazing Stories, in 1926. For a large letter column which printed readers' addresses. By 1927, readers, often young adults, would write to each other, bypassing the magazine. This allowed these fans to begin writing to each other, and eventually self-publish their own material. Only about science fiction, but about fandom itself. Zinesters like Lisa Ben and Jim Kettner honed their talents in the science fiction fandom before tackling gay rights, creating zines such as Vice Versa and one that drew networking and distribution ideas from their SF roots. First science fiction fanzine, The Comet, was published in 1930 by the Science Correspondence Club in Chicago and edited by Raymond A. Palmer and Walter Dennis. The first version of Superman, a bald-headed villain, appeared in the third issue of Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster's 1933 fanzine Science Fiction. The first media fanzine was a Star Trek fan publication called Spockenalia, published in September 1967 by members of the Lunarians. Some of the earliest examples of academic fandom were written on Star Trek zines. Specifically Kirk Spock / zines, which displayed a gay relationship between the two characters. Janus, later called Aurora, was a science fiction feminist zine created by Janice Bostad and Jean Gommel in 1975. It contained short stories, essays, and film reviews. Among its contributors were authors such as Octavia Butler, Joanna Russ, Samuel R. Delany, and Suzette Hayden Elgin. Janus Aurora was nominated for the Hugo Award for Best Fanzine in 1978, 1979, and 1980. Janus Aurora was the most prominent science fiction feminist zine during its run, as was one of the only zines that dealt with such content. Comics were mentioned and discussed in zines as early as the late 1930s. They often included fan artwork based on existing characters, as well as discussion of the history of comics. In 1936, David Kyle published The Fantasy World, possibly the first comics fanzine. Calvin T. Beck's Journal of Frankenstein, later Castle of Frankenstein, and Gary Speller's Gore Creatures were the first horror fanzines created as more serious alternatives to the popular Forrest J. Ackerman 1958 magazine Famous Monsters of Filmland. Fans active in science fiction and comics fandom recognized a shared interest in rock music, and the rock fanzine was born. Paul Williams and Greg Shaw were two such SF fans turned rock zine editors. Williams' Crawdaddy, 1966, and Shaw's two California-based zines, Mojo Navigator Rock and Roll News, 1966, and Who Put the Bomb, 1970, were among the most popular early rock fanzines. Crawdaddy, 1966, quickly moved from its fanzine roots to become one of the first rock music zines with paid advertisers and newsstand distribution. Bomb! The de facto Bible of the scene, presenting a passionate yet dogmatic view of what hardcore was supposed to be. Hatata CK and Profane Existence took the DIY lifestyle to a religious level for emo and post-hardcore and crust punk culture. Zine Comet Bus was first created at Berkeley by the zinester and musician Aaron Comet Bus. The Riot Girl movement emerged from the DIY punk subculture in tandem with the American era of third-wave feminism, and the consciousness-raising method of organizing and communication. As feminist documents, they follow a longer legacy of feminist and women's self-publication that includes scrapbooking, periodicals and health publications, women to circulate ideas that would not otherwise be published. The American publication Bikini Kill, 1990, introduced the Riot Girl Manifesto in their second issue as a way of establishing space. Zinesters Erica Rinstein and May Summer founded the Riot Girl Press to serve as a zine distribution network that would allow Riot GRRRLS to express. And reach large audiences without having to rely on the mainstream press. Girls use this grassroots medium to discuss their personal lived experiences, and themes including body image, sexuality, gender norms, and violence to express anger, and refugio femininity. Starting in this decade, multinational companies started appropriating and commodifying zines and DIY culture. TV shows depicting characters that are making zines became popular in the early 2000s, and in the 2010, faux zines were created, commercializing the hipster lifestyle. Easily spotted as being insincere, and often contain almost none of the quality of zines made by independent writers and artists. In this independent writers and artists. In this day and age, publishing zines have become even more important, as the internet becomes more insular and less peer-reviewed, and as voices are pushed out of the various mainstream forms of distribution, creating your own media has become even more important than ever before. Laptop computers, home printing technology, Xerox machines and any number of office tools allow anyone with an idea and some time to make their own publication. The subject is unimportant. The number of copies you make is irrelevant. But through documenting and presenting your point of view, you are not only empowering yourself, but adding to a historic dialogue that all zine writers participate in.